Good morning, my dear students. Now I will welcome for the fourth class on interference of light. So the last class we have discussed up to interference at thin film for reflected light and also for transmitted light. We have worked out the conditions for maxima and minima. In this fourth class, let us discuss about how interference takes place at an air wedge. So your next heading is interference at a wedge shaped film. First look at the diagram A. OA and OB are two inclined glass plates. Theta is the angle of inclination between the two. At one end, that is point O, the two glass plates are in contact with each other, and the other end, the separation between them is maximum. So such a film, we call it as wedge-shaped film, because the thickness of the film increases from point O to the other end A. Gradually it increases. This is the explanation of the first figure. Consider two plane surfaces, OA and OB, inclined at an angle theta, that is as shown in the figure, and enclosing a wedge-shaped film of refractive index say n. Suppose if it is air film, you should take n is equal to 1. And other than air, you can have any denser medium between the two glass plates. The thickness of the film increases from point O to point B. That is as shown in the first figure. Now look at the second figure. If a parallel beam of monochromatic light is allowed to fall on the upper surface, that is OB, and the surface is viewed by the reflected light, that means if you view the film in a normal direction, a system of equidistant, alternate, dark and bright interference fringes parallel to the line of intersection of the two surfaces called the wedge of the film are seen. That means you will see the straight fringes consisting of alternate, dark and bright, which are parallel to the line of contact between the two glass plates at point O. So remember, figure A or figure B is only a two-dimensional figure. If you think of the two glass plates, then at point O, the contact between the two glass plates is a line. So therefore, the fringes observed will be parallel to the line of contact at point O. So in the second figure, you observe how the rays are incident normally on this wedge-shaped film. The rays will enter, gets reflected the moment it enters the thin film, and also it gets reflected from the bottom glass plate. So thus, along each ray, the reflected rays are two. Two reflected rays will be along the same line. They get superimposed on each other constructively or destructively, depending on the thickness of the film at that point. So here theta is the angle of inclination between the two glass plates, and say P and Q are 2 points. Point P is at a distance say xn from point O, and point Q is at a distance xn plus 1. Maybe there is a position of the n plus 1th bright fringe, and P is the position of the nth bright fringe from point O. And say L is the length of the air wedge, and D is the maximum thickness of the film at the end B. Now let us come to the mathematical steps. The effective path difference between the reflected interfering beams is given by, this is from our previous discussion, 2nt cos r minus lambda by 2 is the additional path difference because of reflection at denser surface. Therefore, effective path difference delta is 2nt cos r minus lambda by 2, where n is the Ri of the wedge film and T is the thickness of the film at that point where you are finding the path difference. R is the angle of refraction. Since the rays are incident normally and gets reflected along the normal, R must be 0, cos R will become 1. And lambda, of course, lambda is the wavelength of the monochromatic light used in the experiment. So for normal incidence, R is 0, therefore cos R will become 1. Then delta will be equal to 2nt minus lambda by 2. Condition for bright fringe is delta should be m lambda, integral multiples of wavelength. Now let us put this condition for a bright fringe. M lambda is equal to 2nt minus lambda by 2. So 2nt becomes 2m plus 1 into lambda by 2, where m is an integer which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Similarly, condition for dark fringe is delta should be odd multiples of lambda by 2. Odd multiple means we can write 2m minus 1 or 2m plus 1. But however, for finding the position of first fringe, dark fringe, we write 2m minus 1. So therefore, for dark fringe, net path difference delta is 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2. So substitute this in equation 1. We get 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2. And the right hand side in equation 1 is 2nt minus lambda by 2. So cancel lambda by 2 on both sides. We get 2nt is equal to m lambda, where m is 0, 1, 2, 3 is an integer, positive integer. So therefore, the conclusion is for bright fringes, 2nt must be odd multiples of lambda by 2, that is from equation 2. And for dark fringes, 2nt must be integral multiples of wavelength lambda. Now, consider a point P at a distance xn from point O, which is there in the figure. Already I have told you this, where the thickness of the film is Tm. So if the mth dark fringe is formed at point P, then 2nt must be equal to m lambda. So from the figure, sin theta, we can approximate it as theta when theta is small. It is Tm by xm. That is from the figure, from the right angle triangle, you can write sin theta as opposite by hypotenuse. So sin theta is approximately equal to theta, which is Tm by xm. Therefore, Tm is xm into theta. Now substitute in place of T, Tm, 2n Tm must be equal to m lambda. So 2n, and for Tm, I will substitute from this equation xm into theta, which is equal to m lambda. That is equation 4. Similarly, for the m plus 1th dark fringe at point say Q, we have 2n into x m plus 1 into theta. It should be equal to replace m by m plus 1. So therefore, it is m plus 1 into lambda. That is equation 5. Now take the difference between these two. So if you take the difference from equations 4 and 5, 2n theta, we can take it as common factor, into xm plus 1 minus xm is equal to right hand side m plus 1 into lambda minus m lambda. M lambda gets cancelled. You will get lambda on the right hand side of the equation. So this difference xm plus 1 minus xm gives you the width of a dark fringe in between the two bright fringes. So therefore, xm plus 1 minus xm is equal to, this you should write, is equal to beta. Beta means fringe width. It is equal to lambda divided by 2n theta. So this is the fringe width expression in case of wedge film. Similarly, if we consider two consecutive bright fringes, the fringe width beta will be the same. Thus, the fringes are equidistant. Whether it is bright or dark fringe, fringe width is constant. If d is a thickness of the object, that is spacer, then by similar triangles, we can write tan theta as theta, which is equal to Tm by Xm, which is same as Tm plus 1 divided by Xm plus 1, which is equal to D by L. So therefore, you just replace theta by D by L in the above expression. We get beta is equal to lambda L divided by 2nd. For air film, for air wedge, put refractive index n is equal to 1. Then the expression becomes beta is equal to lambda L by 2D. So this is a very important derivation. It may be asked for main question, 8 marks question. So discuss interference at an air wedge and hence deduce the expression for fringe width beta. Then you draw the diagrams, explain how interference occurs, how fringes are formed, and then work out the mathematical steps, and you conclude up to equation 9. So fringe width beta is lambda L divided by 2D, where lambda is the wavelength of monochromatic light used in the experiment, L is length of the air wedge, and D is the thickness or diameter of the spacer which is placed in between the two glass plates at the free end. So in the lab, you are going to perform an experiment to determine the thickness of the film, that is thickness of the spacer, where you will use monochromatic light, that is sodium vapor lamp, whose wavelength lambda is known, 5893 angstrom units. You will measure the length of the air wedge with the help of a scale, and you will find the fringe width beta using a traveling microscope by difference method, and then you will calculate what is small d. So this formula is very important even from the practical's point of view. So the extra thing, nature of interference pattern. Fringes are straight, parallel to the edge of the wedge are observed. And what are the applications of interference in a wedge-shaped film? We can determine the diameter of thin wires or hair. We can determine what is the refractive index of the liquid in between the two glass plates. We can test the plainness of the two surfaces in contact. These are important. And this is a conclusion from the above discussion. If lambda is wavelength, L is length of the wedge film, D is the thickness of the spacer, then fringe width beta is lambda L by 2D. The interference fringes are equidistant from one another. The fringe at the apex of the wedge is always dark. Remember, that's very important. Because of the thickness of the wedge is very small compared to wavelength lambda, at the apex means point O, that is line of contact, you will always get a dark fringe. Third point, fringes are straight and parallel, as each maximum, that is bright fringe, or minimum dark fringe is a locus of constant film thickness. The fringes are called fringes of equal thickness. So all fringes will be of equal thickness in case of wedge film. The fringes are said to be localized as they are located at the top surface of the wedge film. You can see all these fringes with the help of a traveling microscope. So this is about interference at thin film. Next, let us come to Newton's rings. This is another case of interference by the division of amplitude. Even air wedge is interference by the division of amplitude. Whereas biprism experiment, Young's double slit experiment, they are examples for interference by the division of wave front. What are Newton's rings? First, you look at the diagram. You have a plain glass plate placed on the table surface. Above that, you have a plano-convex lens. This is a plano-convex lens. This is a plane surface, and this curved surface is convex. So upper lens is plano-convex, lower one is just glass plate, and the two are in contact at the center, and all around you will have air film, and this is a glass to air boundary, and this is air to glass boundary, and this is the incident ray. This is how it undergoes refraction inside the plano-convex lens, emerges along CD. So AB, say AB is the incident ray, BC is the refracted ray inside the plano-convex lens, CD is the emergent ray into the film at point D, and also at point C the rays gets reflected back, and thus the reflected rays emerges into air as ray 1 and ray 2, and these two rays, they get superimposed on each other and produces interference fringes, which are in the form of concentric rings. And whether you get a bright ring at that point or a dark ring at that point, it depends on the thickness of the air film in between the plano convex lens and the glass plate. So that interference pattern, let us see in the next figure. Now this is how Newton's rings apparatus is arranged to study Newton's rings. Now let us come to the explanation part. Newton's rings. When a plano-convex lens with its convex surface is placed on a plain glass plate, an air film of gradually increasing thickness is formed between the two. The thickness of the film is zero at the point of contact between the glass plate and the plano-convex lens. If monochromatic light is allowed to fall normally and the film is viewed in the reflected light, a system of alternate dark and bright concentric rings around the point of contact between the lens and the glass plate are seen. It means you will see a number of alternate dark and bright concentric rings from the center point. These circular fringes discovered by Newton are therefore called Newton's rings. And the thickness of these rings gradually decreases as the fringe number increases. This is about Newton's rings. The same diagram is enlarged here. Now let us come to the theory of Newton's rings by the reflected light. We can study the theory of Newton's rings by the reflected light. Similarly, you can study the interference of the transmitted light also, but it is not there in the syllabus. Let us discuss only the theory of Newton's rings related to reflected beam. Now let us consider a wave train AB. You refer to the previous diagram. AB is an incident wave. Consider a wave train AB of monochromatic light of wavelength lambda falling on a system. A part is reflected at point C. You refer to the figure. At point C, a part of the incident light gets reflected by the convex surface of the plano-convex lens. That is glass-air boundary, which goes out in the form of ray 1 without any phase change. The other part is refracted along CD. At point D is again reflected and goes out in the form of ray 2. Look into the figure. One ray, it is reflected the boundary between glass and air at point C. That is your ray 1. And then the remaining light will undergo refraction along CD. It gets reflected at the surface of the glass plate, which is a denser medium, and this ray will be refracted as ray 2 and emerges from the convex lens, plano-convex lens. So ray 1, ray 2 is not marked. You please write it as ray 2. So the ray 2 will have a phase change of 180 degree or pi radians. The reflected rays 1 and 2 produce interference fringes as they have been derived from the same ray and hence fulfill the condition for interference. So it means the two reflected rays 1 and 2, they are from the same source, they have same amplitude and wavelength, they get superimposed on each other and produces interference. Whether you get dark fringe, dark ring or bright ring, it depends on the thickness of the air film in between the plano convex lens and the glass plate at that point. So now let us come to the mathematical part. The path difference between the interfering rays 1 and 2 by the reflected light is given by delta is equal to 2nt cos r plus lambda by 2. This is an expression we are using from our previous discussions. 2nt cos r plus lambda by 2 is a net path difference between the rays 1 and 2. For air film, put n is equal to 1. And for normal incidence, put r is equal to 0. Then the expression becomes delta is equal to, path difference delta is equal to 2t plus lambda by 2. Let us call this as equation 1. 2t plus lambda by 2 is the net path difference between the two rays 1 and 2. Let PTQ be the vertical section of the lens surface. For this, you have to look into the second figure. I will go to the next figure in a while. Let PTQ be the vertical section of the lens surface through its center of curvature O, having radius of curvature equal to R. Okay, we'll come to this figure. You see here, PTQ is a convex surface of the plano convex lens. Its radius of curvature is R. I am completing this spherical surface. PTQ is a convex surface of the plano convex lens. If you complete the sphere in dotted line, the radius of this sphere is capital R. So LT is a diameter which is equal to R plus R2R, and OP or OQ is equal to R, radius of curvature, and this is a lower glass plate. This is a plano convex lens. At point P or at point Q, the thickness of the film is the same. Even at point S, the thickness of the film will be same. Let us call T as the thickness of the plano convex lens. So therefore, at the edge of the plano convex lens, the thickness of the air film will be equal to T. But the thickness of the air film is 0 at capital T. It is maximum equal to small t at point M or at point N. So O is the center of the circle, and remember all these points. Now we will go back to the explanation part. Net path difference delta is 2t plus lambda by 2, that is equation 1. Let PTQ be the vertical section of the lens surface through its center of curvature O, having radius of curvature equal to capital R. The lens is in contact with the glass plate at point T. Glass plate is MTN in such a manner that the points P and Q are equidistant from it. That is clear from the figure. Complete the circle PTQL and draw the diameter TOL. Draw also PM and QN. Look at the figure. PM and QN. PM and QN perpendicular to the glass plate. Perpendicular to the plane MN, and let PM equals QN is equal to T. The path difference between the two rays, one reflected from P and the other reflected from n is 2nt cos r. Now let us work out the condition for a bright fringe. For bright fringe, 2t plus lambda by 2 should be equal to m lambda. That is 2t must be equal to 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2, where m is an integer and r is the radius of curvature of the convex plane of convex lens, and small r is the radius of the Newton's rings corresponding to the thickness t. Therefore, 2t must be equal to 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2 for a bright fringe. Now, from the property of circle, we can write, that is from the figure, you can refer the figure here, SQ into SP should be same as SL into ST. This is properties of circle. Now substituting the values, SQ is smaller, SQ is smaller, that is radius of the Newton ring. Even SP is smaller, ST is thickness T into SL is 2R minus T. That is clear from the figure. If you simplify this, it is 2RT minus T square. Since T is very small compared to capital R, ignore T square. So it is equal to 2RT. So R square will be equal to 2RT. Therefore, T is equal to R square by 2R. Let us call this as equation 3. It is printed here. You just write T is equal to R square by 2R as equation 3. Substituting the value of T in equation 2. So substitute T value in equation 2. We get 2R square by 2R. 2T. We had 2T on the left hand side. 2 into T is this. 2R square by 2R is 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2. Therefore, R square will be 2m minus 1 R lambda by 2. For mth bright fringe of radius Rm, we can write Rm square as 2m minus 1 into R lambda divided by 2. If you cross multiply, we can write 4Rm square is equal to 2 into 2m minus 1 into lambda by 2. Just multiply by 2 on both sides of this equation. You will get 2 here, 2Rm square, and take this 2 in the denominator to the left hand side. It becomes 4Rm square is equal to 2 into 2m minus 1 into R lambda. Since dm is 2Rm, square it. Dm square will become 4Rm square. So therefore, we can write 4Rm square as dm square. It is equal to 2 into 2m minus 1 into R into lambda. So from equation 4, it is clear that the diameter of the bright rings are proportional to the square root of the odd natural number, as 2m minus 1 is an odd number. So the conclusion from the above expression is that dm proportional to square root of 2m minus 1. That means the diameter of the bright fringes are always proportional to the square root of the odd natural numbers. Similarly, we can work out for dark fringes. For dark fringes, 2t plus lambda by 2 must be 2m plus 1 into lambda by 2, where m is an integer. So cancel lambda by 2 on both sides, and even 2 and 2 gets cancelled. You will get 2t is equal to m lambda. Substituting the value of t from equation 3 in equation 5, we get 2 into t is r square by 2r. It is equal to m lambda. So r square is equal to m r lambda. For mth dark fringe Rm, we can write Rm square as m r lambda, or 4Rm square is equal to 4m r lambda. So therefore dm square is equal to 4m r lambda, dm proportional to square root of m. So thus the diameters of the dark rings are proportional to the square root of natural numbers. This is a conclusion. Diameters of the bright fringes are proportional to square root of odd numbers, while the diameters of dark rings are proportional to square root of the natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. For m is equal to 0, it corresponds to central dark spot. That means, as shown in this figure, the central fringe is always dark. So m is 0 for the central fringe, and at the center you will always get a dark spot. And if you put m is equal to 1, it corresponds to first dark ring. This is the first dark ring. This is central dark, and then first bright, and then first dark, second bright, second dark, and so on. You will see a number of concentric rings. These are known as Newton's rings. The thickness of the rings gradually decreases, whether it is bright or wrong. Thickness will be gradually decreasing. Now let us continue with the mathematical part. It can be shown that the fringe width decreases with the order of fringe, and the fringes gets closer with increase in the order of the fringe. Now let us calculate from the above equations the diameters of 16th and 9th dark rings are given by D16 is 2 into square root of m lambda r. In place of m, you write 16. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 into 2 is 8. 8 into square root of lambda r. So 8 root lambda r is the diameter of the 16th dark fringe. Similarly, D9 is 2 into square root of 9 lambda r, which becomes 6 into square root of lambda r. Now take the difference. D16 minus D7 is 8 into square root of lambda r minus 6 into square root of lambda r, which is 2 into square root of lambda r. Similarly, D4 minus D1, you will get same thing, 2 into square root of lambda r. So the wavelength lambda of the incident monochromatic light can be determined either from equation 4 or equation 6. Equation 4 is this, or equation 6. Lambda can be determined if you measure what is the diameter of the mth ring. And now the wavelength lambda that can be determined. We can write dm square as 2 into 2m minus 1 into r lambda for mth bright fringe, and dp square for pth bright fringe. We can write 2 into 2p minus 1 into r lambda for pth bright fringe. Now take the difference. dm square minus dp square is, take 4r lambda as common factor, you will get m minus p. So therefore wavelength lambda will be equal to dm square minus dp square divided by 4r m minus p. So m minus p is an integer, the difference of two numbers, mth bright fringe and pth bright fringe. This difference is a number. R is radius of curvature of the convex surface of the plano-convex lens that can be determined by experiment. And if you measure the diameter of the mth bright fringe and pth bright fringe, wavelength of the incident monochromatic light can be determined by performing an experiment. And even the vice versa, if you know the wavelength of the monochromatic light used in the experiment, we can also determine what is the radius of curvature of the convex surface of the plano-convex lens. That is the experimental part. You are going to perform that experiment in the lab, which is known as Newton's rings experiment. So this completes the derivation part. Now I will conclude the class. I will continue for the next session. Thank you.